Hello, it's nice to meet you. Would you like to introduce yourself and what you do?
Hey, thanks for having me. I am Dr. Terry Harris. I am the founder CEO of the Legacy Center. The Legacy Center is a community space in North County, specifically located in the Normandy School District area. So we focus on after-school programming for youth, providing extracurricular activities. We also do tutoring, we do professional development for teachers. It is a community space, so we partner with the community, figure out what those needs are, and then we try to be that for the community. I'm an educator. I spent 20 years in Rockaway School District as an educator, different roles. My last role, I was the executive director of student services, which was the best job in the world. And then this opportunity came about, and so I didn't want to leave Rockwood. I think I was kicking and crying as I was going out, but the calling was to come here to create something new. I leaned into it, and here we are. It's a beautiful space. We serve about 150 students every single day, offering robotics, offering STEM, offering technology, you name it, we have it here at the Legacy Center.
That's incredible. What would you say inspired you to choose this career field, education, and helping people?
Yeah. So I think, every educator will tell you that they became a teacher because they saw a great teacher, right? They remember a great teacher. My major when I was in college was, first major was psychology, then I moved to accounting, then I moved to, I can't even remember, maybe general business management, and I wasn't happy with any of those things. And I think one day I was just sitting outside and just really thinking okay, I'm gonna graduate in 2 years. What do I want to do? And I thought about high school. I thought about my high school teacher, Mr. Steve Clawwitter, this young hippie white teacher, completely opposite from who I was, right? I'm the city boy, urban lifestyle, and he's like this suburban / rural white guy. Two completely different music, taste, food taste. We didn't have anything in common. And he was boring. He really wasn't exciting, or he just didn't have this. But this is what he had. He had the ability to tell a story. And Mr. Clawwitter, everything that you read about how to teach high school and younger people today, Mr. Clawwitter did the complete opposite, right? You want to have visuals, you need to have them move, you need to have them in partners, that you can't write on the screen, they don't need to take long notes, you don't want to stand behind the podium and lecture to them. Mr. Clawwitter stood behind the podium and he lectured to us every single day for 60 to 90 minutes. But he told a story. And Mr. Clawwitter never had books. He never had, I never sent him with a book or a plan. He did all that prior to coming to the classroom. He had a pen, he had a projector, and he had, whatever the piece of paper is. He just wrote down these different things and he told a story. And it was captivating. This because you're a high school student, but European history is the hardest history because it's so massive, it's so big, it covers such a large span. And he was just lecturing on that, and everyone was involved and got it, and everyone passed. And if you took Mr. Clawwitter the first time, you wanted to take him the second time, and the third time, the fourth time. He had this wait list. Teacher of the year, multiple years, but he was amazing. So that's Mr. Clawwitter. That's how I got into the field of education. This is all long. You cut and use what you need to use. I just want to give you as much information as possible, just in case we don't see each other again. When I graduated from college, I didn't go into education. I took a job at Old Jones Investment Firm because I needed to make money. At least that's what I thought. But I was miserable. So I went back to school, got a teaching degree, worked in the same district that I graduated from. Spent 20 years, went through the system, and every good educator will tell you that they're always thinking about how to make the Bryce, the Terry's in the world better, right? And so you always have these things in your head, like, oh, if I had $1 million, I would create this state-of-the-art, swimming team, pool, and we'll do all the. You're always thinking about those things. And just so happened, someone literally had millions of dollars and said, put $8 million into this building to renovate this building, and didn't really know what they wanted to do with it. A friend called a friend who called me. I walked the building for the first time, fell in love with it, told the guy I had an idea, and he said, "What's your idea?" Actually laughed at me, but I told him my idea. I put it on paper. He said, "I'll give you a year, and we'll try it." And here we are going on year 4 for the program. Just secured another $2 million to keep the program going, and it's great. So that's kind of how I got here. But at my heart, at my core, I'm an educator. Like I'm still an educator. I'm just not in traditional school settings anymore, but we educate students all the time. That's one. The second thing is, like, you really have to have a love for community and people, specifically in this area, in this case, young Black youth who don't necessarily have the opportunities and the things that other students have. I want you to picture this. I know you're not necessarily from St. Louis, but Rockwood School District is the largest school district in the St. Louis region. Rockwood School District is probably the 5th largest school district in the entire state. Rockwood School District is very wealthy. We have a $400 million budget. It's a school budget compared to this school district where it's probably like $60 million now. Obviously, scale-wise, you have 20,000 kids versus 2,500 kids. But when you equalize all those things, right, you still have these great inequities. So you have a school district here who doesn't have the same, opportunities. If I'm a kid that goes to Normandy School District and I'm a swimmer and I'm as good as you are, where do I swim? Right? Where do I get to go to swim? At Marquette High School, Rockwood School District, Olympian-sized pool. Lafayette, Eureka, I don't know about Eureka, but I know Lafayette and Marquette. But I assume all 3 of those places, all 4 of those schools have that, right? The football field, the weight rooms, all these different things. Not to mention your AP courses, right? At your school, you guys probably offer 50 AP courses. Here, you probably offer 2. In Rockwood, you offer 50, whatever. So what happened is, for 20 years, I was a student in Rockwood School District for 20 years, actually 24 years, even when I worked out with a student. And you learn, and we did great, amazing things. And then when the time came, you take all those wonderful things that you learned and you try to transfer it here, right? So when individuals which we're gonna get to the Minnie Liddell case, the DSA program, because I think all of this plays a part. Especially when you're talking about St. Louis history, how did we get here? So easy for outsiders to come in and say, what the hell is going on with St. Louis? These people are so backwards, like it's so frustrating. But there's a reason that St. Louis is here and how we got here. And it's people like me, people like you, who have to tell the story and then slowly try to do things differently to make it better. So you take all the things that you learn, the good things, right, and the bad things, and you come and you say, okay, let's work with these community leaders, let's work with these young people. What is it that you want? When we first got to the Legacy Center, we were in the gym. We put poster boards all around the gym, elementary, middle, high school kids, and we said, write down everything that you want, right? And our job, our goal is to say over the next 5 years, when we started, that we were going to make sure that we had all those things that the kids wanted. Because if we have what the students are asking for, then guess what? The kids are going to come. We got all the things that the kids ask for, which is why we have so many students that we have here today. All right, ask me another question. I promise I won't be as long.
That was really good. I would just say, you mentioned like the Wendell case and the DSEG program. How would you? And I know in your bio you mentioned that you yourself used that program. How would you describe your personal use and the ineffective or effectiveness of that program?
Yeah, good question. Do you understand how the program works? Do you understand what the program is?
I do, yes.
Tell me what you know about the program.
I know. The Voluntary Interdistrict Choice Corporation, right? That's It was a program for generally about, I think, 300 somewhat students in the city in those school districts to be bused into county schools. It was, I think, the sign up thing, and there were a lot. Well, from what I read, there were a lot more people who signed up than people who got in.
Absolutely.
And
So let me tell you. So a couple of things, and I can send you some resources as well to help you with your paper. Some really great things that you can just cite. But think about this. So you know that in America there was slavery, which then said that black individuals could not be educated. Slavery ended in 1865, which is the end of the Civil War. The Missouri Constitution from 1875 or 76. You can quote, you can fact check me later, but I know it's 75, 76. 1875 or 1876, 1875. From 1875 all the way to 1976 said that black kids and white kids could not be educated together, right? They could not be educated together. So then you really have this separate but quote unquote equal that is still going on, although separate but equal ended in 1892 or 1896. So then you get to Brown versus Board of Education 1954, and then I think Brown versus Board of Education 1956, which students should ask, why was there two Brown versus Board of Educations? And there was two Brown versus boards because the first Brown, it was just like the Supreme Court came out and said, this is what you have to do, and all the states were basically like, yeah, we'll get to it. The second Brown is really important because the second Brown created this clause, this phase. It's called with all deliberate speed. It's like one of the most beautiful pieces of writing ever, with all deliberate speed. School districts must desegregate schools or integrate schools, and it wasn't integration, it was desegregation. Desegregate schools with all deliberate speed. Missouri said, oh, we're gonna do it, like we're gonna be great. So Missouri came up with a 3-part plan to desegregate schools. But the plan didn't desegregate schools. The plan was, we'll create this concept called neighborhood schools. Why is that important? Because neighborhoods are segregated. Absolutely. Why are they segregated? Because a little Supreme Court case that's called Shelley versus Kramer, right? Mm-hmm. So let me tell you something. As it relates to civil rights, Missouri is at the heart of a lot of things, right? I remember when I was studying and doing things like this, like, oh my God, Missouri's in the Supreme Court cases as it relates to civil rights. A few years ago, the Missouri History Society, or Missouri History Museum, had this exhibit. It was called, I think it was called St. Louis, #1 in civil rights, right? And it was amazing. Like it looked at civil rights across the country and different things like that, but St. Louis was at the center of it. Missouri was at the center of it. So you have a school district, a Board of Education who said, we're going to adhere to this Brown versus Board of Education, and we're going to desegregate our schools. We won't have schools based on race, right? We won't say black kids have to go here, white kids have to go here. What we're going to say is that if you live here, then this is your neighborhood school. And that's great. Because you're brilliant, if your neighborhood schools are integrated. Yeah. So then you don't have but when your neighborhood schools are based on race, then you're going to have a race-based school. That's one. The second thing that I think is really, 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 really important for the sake of the legacy of Minnie Liddell. Minnie Liddell was not trying to have her kids go to school with white kids. That wasn't not what she wanted at all. What Minnie Liddell wanted is for her black kids, two things. One, there was this concept that was called intact busing. And what the system would do, St. Louis Board of Education would do, they would say, okay, this school is overcrowded. In the middle of the school year, we're going to take Bryce and all the kids in his third grade class, and we're going to send them across to some other school, right? And then the next year, Bryce would go to a different school. Then the next year, and she was like, I'm just tired of this. I want my kid to go to school, and one school that is a decent school, that is that have the amenities and all these different things. What Minnie Liddell really wanted was for her kid to have consistent schooling and the same resources as the white students who were in better school spaces. That's what she wanted. How does that relate to me? That's ultimately what we wanted as well. So I was a student in the program in 1995, well before you were born, right?
Yeah.
You just called me old. Yeah. So in 1995, I was an 8th grade student in the program. So I spent kindergarten through 7th grade in St. Louis public schools, all black. I had one white teacher, no white classmates, none. And then in 1995, I went to Rockwood School District, Rockwood Valley Middle School to be exact, and 90% of my classmates, 100% of my teachers were all white. So within a year, it was a cultural shock. There's a podcast called This American Life. I don't know if you heard of it, but I want you to Google This American Life, and then I think the episode is called 4 Miles, either 3 miles or 4 miles, but it'll pop up. And it's a beautiful story about these kids in the Bronx. It's like one student goes to MICES, the other student goes to St. Louis Public, and they switch schools for the day. And it's like, what in the world is this, right? That was my experience. So it was a happiness because, oh my God, like we have all these new books, we have all these different things. The lunch is great, it's peaceful, it's quiet. I don't have this fear of like, survival, right? And then at the same time, it's sad because it's like, whoa, like my 8 years of life was spent in this space when I could have had this space. A big difference was that in St. Louis Public, I knew that those teachers loved me. Like I felt that they loved me. When I was in Rockwood, I didn't feel like the teachers loved me. It was just more transactional. No, you're gonna learn this so you can get here, so you can get here. In St. Louis Public, it was more so you need to learn this so that when you get this, you can come back to your community and do this. Like there was meaning as early as 4th grade. There, it was more independent. But I think that people are split on the program. Some people hate the program. Some people think that a lot of the smart, capable families left the city to go out to the San Luis County schools. I think to a certain extent that may be fair. I don't think that any one of us are like, more intellectual than the people that stay behind. I don't think it's that at all. I don't. I think that they're very, very smart, brilliant people that stayed. I think what happened is our parents were experiencing the same reaction that Minnie Liddell was experiencing. I love St. Louis Public, but I'm tired that my kid doesn't have the books for thus and so, or they are not being exposed to this and that. And so what happened is you say, I want to try to get my kid, I want the best for my kid. I want to try to get my kid the best education in the world, so this is better than this, I want my kid to go here. I think that was it. Educationally, it was great, it was wonderful. Culturally, it was hard. You're talking about in 1995 when the program, the DSEC program started in 1983. So you're talking about a program that's like literally a baby at this point, 12 years old program where people are still trying to figure it out. And people weren't like as socially aware as people are now, right? Like people did and said crazy things. It was a school within a school model. The black kids that did well in that system when I was in, they had to lose a part of their blackness, right? I think to a certain extent, if you talk to individuals who are people of color or women or any individuals who are not white males at the center, will tell you when you're going into some dominant space like that, you have to shed a piece of yourself. And it's really, really hard when you're a kid to shed a piece of yourself, right? Because you just don't understand it. You don't have the words to articulate why you have to do this. Some kids did it easier than other kids, and some kids didn't do it at all, and they struggled in the system. So to be successful at that time, and I suppose throughout the whole program, to be successful in the DSEC program, one had to learn how to assimilate in a way that no one told you how to do it. It wasn't like there was a class that said, hey, black students who live in St. Louis City who's been bussed out here, let's get together and let's talk about how we do business here. It was nothing like that. You got off the bus, you walked into school, and you were like, go. And it was just a difference. There's a culture that exists at MICDS that you know,
Yeah.
right? That your classmates know. But if you are a person who is from Connecticut and you don't go to an MICDS type school, and you go into that school, you're going to feel that culture. You're going to be like, oh my God. Let me give you a perfect example. I have a cousin that graduated from John Burroughs, right? And I went to John Burroughs, I think we were like maybe sophomores. It was a football game maybe, and I was going to go hang out with them for the day. We get into the school, we walk into the school, and right in like the foyer area, it was 1,000 book bags. More than that, because that's not that many kids. It was like 200 book bags. It's just like book bags, just land right there. And it was like, what in the world is this? And it was like, oh yeah, man, we just come in, we throw our book bag down, and we just go get breakfast and hang out and do all these different things. And I remember saying, you're not worried that someone's going to take your book bag? And then he looked at me and he said, well, why would they do that? That's the culture of the school. Like, we don't do this. We don't behave this way. We don't do business like this. You have to learn all those different things. Like, you do. And it took some time for a lot of us. A lot of people, when you take a look at the success rate of students who were in a voluntary transfer program, it's not great. The kids who went to the kids who left St. Louis City to go to St. Louis County school districts, and when you take a look at their academic achievement, it's not great. In fact, it's the same. The test scores weren't better. You just have more. You have, I don't even say more. You have these kind of cherry picked stories that you can tell. It's easy to tell a story about successful Dr. Terry Harris, who graduated from Lafayette High School, who was in the DSEG program. You know why? Because Terry Harris was one of 100 black kids. So it was like, oh, well, that's one of 5 black kids that did well. Let's talk about him. If Terry Harris was at Beaubot, Vashon, the other Roosevelt High School in St. Louis City, I would be one of 600. And my story may not be that great. Like, I mean, yeah, Terry, he's great. He went to college, he did this, but this other black person here did, like, Asian people don't talk about, the one Asian person is doing well, because we all, when you're in China, it's like, this is just what we do. If I'm in Nigeria, I'm not gonna, call out that one person, unless they're doing something amazing. Do you understand my analogy? And so I think that was really hard to, it's still hard to sit with, like, knowing that, right? And the thing about Minnie Liddell is, like, for the sake of your child having this quote unquote wonderful, great education, what did they give up, right? So for me, I always wanted to do this story, this kind of calling all those black people that participated in the DSEG program, to have them tell their stories. Like, what did you, not even leading, I don't want to lead, I want to do exactly what you're doing, which is a St. Louis history project on the DSEG program with individuals who actually went through the program, and then get it to the point where we send it to the St. Louis History Museum, we send it to the federal government, and we catalog it. It's their stories, just like the stories of the Great Depression, right? Like, what did you give up? How was it for you? What did you love about it? All these different things. I loved it. I loved the program, and at the same time, I hated certain things that kids had to do.
That makes sense. And obviously, as a young white guy, I've never experienced any of that. And I think it's really impressive what you say. Like, I really agree with, like, making sure that people are heard and people can tell their stories. And you said some really cool things so far. And I was just wondering, like, hypothetically, if you were just like the only person deciding, if you had limitless budget, what would you do to, like, say, integrate or, like, provide equal opportunity to people if you could make that decision
Yeah, definitely. I think that I don't even think it's a hypothetical. I think that we have examples of being able to do it. If I'm not mistaken, I think in Minnesota, it's like open enrollment, right? I'm pretty positive Minnesota has open enrollment, which means that if you live in Minnesota, you can go to any school, minus your John Burroughs and my CDSs, those independent schools, because those are independent schools, right? But your public schools, like you can go to whatever public school. I think we should have something like that. And I think that, and you pool the money together, and then we force these places to be very strategic in what they provide and what they offer. So, I want to go to Roosevelt High School, which is on the south side in South St. Louis City, because that is the best program to prepare anybody who wants, this is hypothetical, anyone who wants to be a doctor. Yeah, I'm gonna go to that school. Great. So I'm this white kid, this Asian kid, this Hispanic kid who lives in St. Louis County. I want my mom to either drive me to that school or there's some bus that is going to get me there. That's what I want. If I'm a black kid in North St. Louis and it's like, oh my God, like I want to be a culinary expert. And Marquette High School, which is true, Marquette High School has a really good culinary program. Then I want to go to Marquette High School. If some school is really great at technical, then I want to go there, right? Like if we figure out how to design schools in a way that is specialized, and then we provide the resources, then you'll do this. Listen, I'm from St. Louis, born and raised in St. Louis. I love St. Louis. I came back to St. Louis to be in St. Louis because I love St. Louis. If we want St. Louis to thrive, to do well, you have to ensure that Black St. Louisans are doing well. Like, that's the problem. The problem is you have a group of individuals who think to themselves like, that's whatever they're doing. Oh, that's on them. And it's like, no. When you leave and go to state and you talking to the people around the state, and they're gonna know what school you go to, but let's pretend like someone didn't. And you go to a tournament in Florida, and they're like, oh yeah, cool. You introduce yourself, and they say, oh, where are you from? What do you say? Not the school. They're asking you your city. Where are you from?
St. Louis.
You're from St. Louis. You only tell me that you're from Kirkwood when you're in St. Louis, right? But when you leave to go out into the world, and someone asks you where you're from, you're gonna say St. Louis. You know why? Because no one knows anything about Kirkwood, but people know what St. Louis is. That's the mentality that we have to have. We have to have this mentality of all hands have to be on deck for St. Louis. So how do we rebuild St. Louis? How do we rebuild the people in St. Louis? How do we ensure that the people in St. Louis are doing well? Because when the people in St. Louis are doing well, we're all doing well in terms of the entire region. It's not a scarcity model in which we have to operate from. And so if I had all the money, it's like, no, like some kids don't want to go to a school that is all the way out in Rockwood School District, Eureka, right? No, I want to stay here. But all kids have a specialty or an idea, right? Like why are you at, don't answer this question, but why are you at MICDS versus John Burroughs? Like those schools are very similar in a lot of ways, but yet you chose this school over this school. Why? There was probably some small nuanced thing that caused you to go here. What I'm simply saying is, if we look at St. Louis school system, as a region, if we look at the St. Louis school system, the way that we look at all the other resources in St. Louis, then we can have some success. What do I mean? We share the zoo, right? St. Louis County tax dollars pay for the zoo. The zoo is in what zip code or what area? The city of St. Louis. City of St. Louis proper. We share the History Museum. We share the Science Center. We share the Arch. Well, the Arch is federal now. We share the Art Museum, right? Those are shared amenities that we have. So what I'm simply saying is share the education. Create a system where kids can go anywhere. And the more that we continue to rely on the neighborhood school fallacy, the more we continue to contribute to the legacy of racist practices. The neighborhood school fallacy is not like written in the Constitution of Missouri, like especially as it relates to the city of St. Louis. Those things came in the 1970s. My mom was born then when those things came, right? Like that is not something that's like, oh, this is how we've done school forever. No, we do neighborhood schools. We require students to go to schools within their neighborhood because of a system that we're trying to perpetuate. And it's up to us to feel, I'm not calling anybody racist or anything like that. But what I am saying is our practices came from very racist beginnings. And if we're not going to deal with that, then we're going to continue to have, failing schools and kids not doing well. And let me tell you this, the other thing is the DSEC program that you're here to interview me about, that program ended, right? That program ended, 2023, 24. And so there are a few kids who are still in the program because it's called a lag or a leg. They're going to allow for those kids to finish the program, but they're not accepting any more new kids. So, if black kids from St. Louis City are not being allowed to participate in this program, then we only have one other option. That means that all the powers that be, have to create a better education system in St. Louis City with the help of the St. Louis City individuals. Or we're simply saying, good luck. And we know when you say good luck, there's a lot of things that goes with it, right? Like you have crime goes up, right? You have more crime that goes up. Then you have more crime. And then you have businesses that then start to leave the region, which then leads to crime. Population, decrease. And then you don't have a city anymore. And so I think it's really interesting. I think if we think about the education system, if we just focus on the education system, then I think it's easy for us to kind of dismiss it and be like, well, good luck. Those parents should have made better decisions. But if we look at the education system and what's going on and tie that to what's going on in the entire region in St. Louis and how it's going to impact all of us, then we all should be concerned with how schools are doing.
Yeah, that's really good, and I would say, that's also been like a trend throughout, like just looking at the surface level, like, well, these people live here, right, so you should go to school. And like you said, like between things such as racial covenants, redlining, that stuff, the neighborhoods have been very segregated, and I think those are the points you brought about integrating the schools. I think that's really impressive. Like I think that something we should do, and I would say that from what it looks like, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, but basically if the program ends, like it seems like it's just going back to square one before the program, because I don't think there have been like any, or at least not many, actual legal changes while the program is active.
No.
Yeah.
And so the only thing that you kind of see that's happening, the alternative that's happening, is the creation of charter schools, right? So what's happening legally is individuals can create charter schools. You can create charter schools in St. Louis County now, different things like that, which is a different option for individuals. If it works, it works. But I'm to the point where I think that we have to do whatever we need to do to save St. Louis. Like that's my feeling. So like you won't hear me say, oh, I'm against charter schools. My daughter went to an independent school. My daughter went to New City School when she was younger. And we had to pay for school. And I was a public school educator. My wife is a public school educator. And so I don't know. I think I'm a big choice person too, or as well. Like I think that people and children and parents should have choices. And I think that certain schools work for certain kids. John Burroughs was not going to be an option for my daughter because that's not how she's wired, right? I think that we need to really start to design schools based on these interest-based model schools, right? So that kids can find success. Right now, we're seeing too many kids who are leaving education, dropping out of school, and like really disconnected from school simply because they don't like it, right? So when we think about the options that we really need to sit down and think about as a region, it's like how do we keep kids more engaged in school? You guys are the smartest generation that's ever lived. You are. Your kids will be the smartest generation that ever lived. You understand what I'm saying? Like every generation is becoming more and more and more smarter than the generation, especially from a technological standpoint. And so school can't feel and look the same. School feels and look the same now as it did when I was in school, probably as it did when my mom was in school. So when we think about school, it's like, I'm not sad about the DSEC program ending. I'm really sad that we haven't been creative and innovative enough to reimagine what school can look like for all kids. Let me also tell you the secret. Don't tell anybody I told you this. White kids in St. Louis are not doing well either. They just do a little bit better than black kids. You know, I went to school with the white kids out, right? I know tons of white kids they were not happy with school. They struggled with school. They did okay because they had parents that rolled them. They just did that. You know, they went through the system. But we have a generation of students who are not engaging in schools the way they need to, and so we just got to help them engage in schools. I think we can use the Minnie Liddell case as our 21st century, not DSEG case, but as a social experiment to reimagine schools. I think ultimately that's what she was doing. What Minnie said is like, no, let's reimagine this neighborhood model, right? So that's what she said. How do we take that same concept and reimagine what we call school now? And you can do school like you can say, I want to take French, and I want to learn French, but I can learn French actually from a person from Paris, and I'm going to hop on my computer every single day, and we're going to go back and forth. We don't have to do school this way. The fact that you're having this interview outside of your school time is cool, it's great. Like, thank you to your professor, to your teacher for allowing you to really think outside the box. School doesn't have to be done in the way that it's done. Ultimately, I think that's what Minnie Liddell was saying. It doesn't have to go this way. We can reimagine school. And that was in the 1970s when she was trying to reimagine school. And I think that we can do the same thing in 2025. One of the things that Minnie Liddell did, she created an organization that was called Concerned Parents of North St. Louis City, right? It would be cool if we have this task force that is the concerned parents of the St. Louis region. If we want to save St. Louis, the city, the name, then we have to reimagine schools.
And I would say, just from my general class, it's up there. I imagine you would say it's also important to for the city and the county come together just as in general and stop thinking of city and county as separate things. Where, because in a lot of other cities, like Chicago city and county, it's not legally separated. St. Louis is one of the only cities that's legally separated the city from the county.
Two. St. Louis is one of two.
Mm-hmm.
You know the other one?
I don't.
Starts with a B.
Baltimore?
Baltimore.
And, yeah.
So if you take a look at Baltimore and you take a look at St. Louis, St. Louis and Baltimore are sister cities, and so much is very much the same. Like, you have St. Louis. St. Louis City is in the county of St. Louis, right? So every place has a county. So what county are you in, right? So you guys live in Glendale or Kirkwood, but the county that you live in is St. Louis County, Like the city of St. Louis is also a county, which is St. Louis City County. It doesn't make sense to the point. If you take St. Louis City plus the county, you add the population together, then we're probably easily in the top 20 cities, right? So we expand, we get more resources, we get more things. So I won't necessarily go into this with you right now because I want you to think about this, and then 10 years from now, whenever you stop in St. Louis, because you'll be wealthy doing all kind of Olympic type swimming things, you'll get a chance to have coffee and we'll talk about this. I want you to think about exactly what you're saying, because it's your point. You brought it up, not me. You said that St. Louis City and St. Louis County should be doing things because we're one of two places that. The question that you have to ask yourself is, why not? What's preventing us from doing it? And I suspect that you being as bright as you are, you already know that answer. And that answer is what's holding us back, be it education, be it economic mobility, be it attracting businesses to the city. And that is the ugly legacy of St. Louis history that we have to live with. Some people tackled that ugly history head on and was able to move forward, and other people have not. So
I would definitely agree. A lot of people just want to pretend it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas if you just pretend it didn't happen, the effects of it are just going to continue. Like, you have to proactively battle the effects. I know you've already done incredible stuff here with your legacy STL, and I was just wondering your opinions on how recent things that the government has done in general. How do you feel about the direction we're currently moving, just as a whole?
Mm-hmm.
And how are you optimistic or not optimistic for the future?
Yeah. So I was a history major when I was in school, and I'm a Black American. In my family, my mom is from Cleveland, Mississippi. So for me, and I'm very into politics, so I can tell you everything that's going on, and I'm very into politics. But here's where I'm going with this. For me, when that question comes up, it's I just kind of smile and say, I'm a Black American. My people were slaves, from 1619 up into 1865, from 1865 up into 1975. And some would kind of argue some certain thing, and it's you have no other choice but to be hopeful. My grandmother was literally born on a plantation. My uncles picked cotton. My grandmother was a maid who got paid maybe $3 a week. And so I remember having these questions about all these different things, and oh, grandma, that's so crazy, right? And my grandmother said, it's not about having hope, it's about having life. And I was like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? And she said, you can have hope if that's, I'm not against hope. She's not against hope. She said, but what's the opposite? The opposite is death. And she wants life. So she gets up every single day and she does what she needs to do so she can continue to live for her individuals. She didn't have time to not have hope. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I have to keep moving. If you're a Jewish person in the Holocaust and you don't know when the war is going to end, you have to keep moving, right? You have no other choice but to, because I don't know, or you're gonna die. The alternative is death. So that's one. So for me, when I look at the world, it's there's an African proverb that says there's nothing new under the sun. So, which means that this thing is going to keep moving. So I think we're going to be good there. I think the other thing though is, I think that the young people, I'm inspired because I work with young people and I'm around young people all the time. So young people are telling us how to play the game. Or young people are telling us that you don't have to play this game anymore. And you guys are not doing that. You guys are bold. Even the individuals who are conservative, the individuals who are progressive, the people who are on completely opposite ends of the spectrum. I think that there's a glimmer of hope of how these individuals are organizing. You take a look at those kids who were doing Turning Point USA. You take a look at, you know, the people who are organizing the No Kings rallies and different things like that. It's like how that organization is going and how many young people, both ends of the spectrum, that are involved in politics and telling us. I think it's exciting to see what this political system will look like in 10 years. My whole life, I've known the political system to be this two-party system that was very much in line, right? And if you're not in line, then you're not going to go through the establishment. I think that you're starting to see people, young people, who are like busting through those glass ceilings, and that's what I'm excited about. The only thing that I'm probably worried about is individuals forgetting that we're all connected. Martin Luther King said, you know, we're trapped in this mutual kind of humanity. And so I just want the young people to continue to make as much noise as possible, to learn all the things, but to not forget their humanity. And I think sometimes it's easy for us to like forget our humanity. And when you forget your humanity, then you forget other people, and then you start making policies that really impact other people that is detrimental to their health. Like, we're going to focus on neighborhood schools, but we're not going to give the neighborhoods the things that they need so that the schools can be great, or we're not going to give the schools the resources that they need so the schools can be great. And then what we're going to say, because we didn't talk about this, but then what we're going to say is the way that school systems or school districts are funded is through personal property taxes, right? And so if you live in Glendale or Kirkwood or Clayton, you have a lot of personal property, you have a lot of business taxes, so then you're gonna have a lot of money. But if you live in the city of St. Louis, when you have this vacant building here, this vacant building here, no one lives here, a business that just left here, every time that happens, you're losing money to fund your neighborhood schools. So we just got some work to do. But you're the right person, man. I don't know how you decided to choose this topic, but I'm glad you did, because I haven't had a chance to talk about this in a while, which is probably why I'm talking so much. You'll chop up and cut up whatever you need to cut up. If you need to call me to talk more about some things, I do it, because I'm just really excited about it.
Thank you so much. This has been really great.
Thank you. You did great.
Yeah.